In order to understand and apply the rules of monkey management, it will help to bear in mind the definition of a monkey. Remember, the monkey is not a project or a problem. The monkey is whatever the next move is on a project or problem. Rule 1 means that a boss and a staff member shall not part company until appropriate next moves have been described. Some examples of monkey descriptions are: obtain final cost figures from accounting, prepare a sales proposal, give the matter further thought, formulate a recommendation, and get the contract signed. There are 3 principal benefits to adhering to this rule. First of all, if my people know in advance that the dialogue between them and me will not end until appropriate next moves have been described, they will tend to do more careful planning before our dialogue begins. My boss Alice taught me this lesson long ago. One day I was bending her ear about all my problems and I asked her what I should do. She said, "You mean you don't know what to do?" I told her I didn't, so she said, "Well, I don't know what you should do either. That makes 2 of us who don't know what you should do, and the company can only afford 1 of us." That was her way of reminding me that for every problem or opportunity brought to her attention, I should also bring some thoughtful recommendations for the next move to be made on the situation. That way we wouldn't have to stand there in the hallway and do the thinking that I should have done before we talked. The second benefit of Rule 1 is that it biases any situation toward action by your own people. Many situations are biased towards paralysis, and no progress can be made until someone makes a next move. For instance, when a problem or opportunity first arises, often the best solution is not immediately apparent, and often the potential hazards of the situation are not obvious. In those cases, especially if there is a lot at stake, it's so tempting for a boss to protect himself or herself by grabbing the monkey. "Let me think about it and I'll get back to you." That leaves the staff member and the entire project on hold until the boss takes action. The person's initiative has been taken away by the boss. On the other hand, if the next moves are clearly described during the dialogue, it often becomes apparent that the subordinate can safely handle many of them. For example, give the matter some thought and study, and/or formulate a recommendation based on what is known to date. That way the situation doesn't stay in limbo until the boss gets around to doing something about it. The third and probably the greatest benefit of adhering to Rule 1 is that specifying next moves can provide a quadruple boost in motivation for the owner of the monkey. First, describing the monkey clarifies the next move, and the more clearly one understands what must be done, the greater the energy and motivation that exists for doing it. Think about how hesitant you feel about making a move on some vexing problem when you only have a hazy idea of what to do. Second, specifying the next move increases motivation by helping one take the all-important first step on a project, which is often the most difficult one to make. After the first step, things usually seem easier. Third, specifying next moves breaks the project into bite-sized pieces, and it is much less daunting to think about making a single next move on a project, for example making a phone call, than to worry about all the effort required to complete the entire project. Fourth, describing next moves increases motivation by allowing one to switch his focus back and forth from goals to next moves. If the goal, completing the entire project, seems overwhelming, thinking about the next move, making a call, is less so. If thinking about all the next moves is discouraging, thinking about the satisfaction of achieving the final goal is less so. Let me relate a couple of instances from my own experience to illustrate the value of the first rule of monkey management. For example, recall the definition of a monkey. A monkey is the next move. This definition does not say anything about the ownership. Therefore, it is possible that one person can own the project and another person can make the next move. I often make use of this reality by asking various members of my staff what next moves I should make on certain projects of mine. That gives them the next move of formulating a recommendation to help me handle my project. This not only synergistically improves the quality of whatever next move I make, 2 heads are better than 1, even if they only add up to 1.3, it also develops my people's abilities, and it gives them some insight into the challenges I face. And it helps train my successor. No small matter, if I want a promotion. Another example of using Rule 1 occurs when one of my people and I are discussing a situation and time runs out before we can even finish defining the problem, much less identifying and describing substantive next moves. Running out of time means the next move is to babysit the monkey, i.e., to maintain responsibility for the matter at hand until the discussion is resumed. So I say to the person, why don't we talk about this again in a couple of days? In the meantime, you hold on to the problem in case you come up with an idea, and I hope you will. In the 2 ensuing days, I probably would have done nothing about the monkey, and it is conceivable that my staff member might do nothing too. But if nothing is going to be done, better it be done in her briefcase than mine. Why? Well, for one thing, it's dark inside her briefcase, so the monkey neither knows nor cares whose briefcase it's in. Also, if the monkey is in one of my people's briefcases, it is at least conceivable that something might get done about it. And even if something amounts to next to nothing, that's infinitely more than nothing I would have done in the same amount of time. Furthermore, even if the something is wrong, that's of some value. There are only a finite number of ways to do a thing wrong, and she just may have eliminated one of them. Here's a final example, describing the value of requiring next moves. Let's say you and a staff member discuss an issue, and the dialogue ends with your asking for a recommendation to resolve it. You smile as the two of you part company. He has the next move, which is to formulate the recommendation. But your pleasure ends with the arrival of his recommendation, a 9-pager, in your in-basket. Now you have the next moves. Read it, think about it, decide what to do about it, do something about it, and so on. You have the worker role, and he the supervisory role. You can see from this scenario that in monkey business, as in chess and checkers, it pays to think ahead several moves. I have learned to avoid the monkeys just described by having my people bring me memos instead of sending them. Why? That way, when the person bringing the memo arrives in my office, I ask him or her to read the memo to me. Several have indicated they could tell me about the memo in 1/3 the time it would take to read it, which makes me glad I didn't take the time to read the other 2/3. Whether they read it or tell me about it, I have time to think, to watch their facial expressions, and to ask questions. That helps me gain quicker and better understanding than if I had read it myself in isolation, because the memo, being composed of words, is subject to misinterpretation. Also, there is less information in the lines of the memo than between the lines, and the person who knows the most about what's between the lines is now sitting in front of me to answer any questions I might have.